Welcome to the Dr. Bergson's Best Health Radio. And to really achieve best health, you got to have great restorative sleep. There are two planets, one where you get a great night's sleep and feel phenomenal the next day, and a second where you can't get a good night's sleep and your tomorrow feels like trudging through molasses. So we're going to talk about the contemporary threats on achieving a great sleep. It's one of the big problems that people complain of, especially as they get older, but even younger kids are beginning to have difficulty with great sleep. And then at the end, we're going to compare natural answers, hormones, which ways to take them in the more optimal manner to improve sleep. You're going to learn so many ways why sleep goes south and how to redirect it north on this show today. And don't forget, you can go to drlindseybergson.com and sign up to be on my email list. And I'm going to make a large blog after I publish it in the Townsend newsletter in the spring on all of the details, which will be a great set of show notes for you. So you'll be able to get these answers. There's almost 60 citations, so you'll be able to find out where in the literature these pearls come from. In modern life, it's easier to end up on planet number 2. Healthy sleep is under continual attack, and threats against achieving a restorative sleep keep mounting. So let's just summarize just a few of the ways your great sleep can get mugged. Besides having a spouse that snores really loudly, which is one of the issues, noise at night. Chronic daily stressors like tending aging parents, or lately I've had a few patients tell me that their young kids want to change their genders, talk about stress, or from single severe traumas such as tornadoes and wildfires to anything like betrayal, getting fired, or receiving a serious diagnosis. We know that there's articles that show when a woman gets breast cancer, her stress levels elevate. And when your stress levels elevate, your sleep can go south. We know that people that work night shift, like people in the ER or people who are tending grocery stores and restocking at night shift workers can have trouble with sleep. By excessive electromagnetic field exposures that occur regularly in towns all across the good old USA that are now dotted in American cultural life today, 2018, with electrical and Wi-Fi towers. Unhealthy food habits. Just take one example. Really healthy greens are high in magnesium. Magnesium lives inside red blood cells where it nudges healthy enzymes to help you sleep. It actually is a cofactor, meaning it helps the activity of over 1,000 different enzymes, but it helps enzymes and neurotransmitters that help you sleep. Regularly consuming junk food and not enough leafy greens and digesting them well, of course, creates nutrient deficiencies, especially magnesium deficiencies. According to many surveys of Americans across our good old USA, about 60 to 80% of Americans are insufficient in magnesium. Magnesium is nature's Valium. It helps you relax. So junk food eating and not enough green food eating and late night eating. Late night eating is actually a syndrome that's now become the norm in American life. We can lie down too much, eat too much, all too soon before bed, and this can ding sleep. How many people are lying on the couch, can't believe they ate the whole bag, and then they go to sleep? Sugary foods can ding sleep. Candies, colas, pastas, pastries, bagels, they all disrupt the hormone insulin, derailing sleep, and vice versa. Once you don't sleep really well and you can't achieve restorative sleep for whatever reason, your insulin doesn't work as well and you're more at risk of blood sugar levels out of control, which ultimately can lead you to type 2 diabetes or type 3 diabetes, which is cognitive decline in your brain not working so well because your brain basically eats oxygen and glucose. And if you have too much insulin, it blocks its food supply. And of course, the big deal why so many people as they get older have issues with sleep is that hormonal swings can cause sleep issues. Women know this well because they get surges of nighttime hot flashes and they wake up with urgency to fling the blankets off of themselves and their sleep is disrupted. And with today's toxic planet filled with hormone altering chemicals, they're making a significant number of younger women go through perimenopause and menopausal yo-yoing and changes earlier and earlier, thus having sleep issues earlier and earlier. I have young kids coming in saying that they're not sleeping well. So insomnia is no longer just in the domain of the aging, it's an American issue. As middle-aged males go through andropause, which are lower levels of testosterone, this can also worsen sleep. It's the male analog to the female situation we just discussed. And once again, as our planet is more and more toxic and diets are more and more junk filled, this is promoting an epidemic of lower T or testosterone in younger American male adults, which can ding sleep. More than 8 hours of watching TV a day, and I guess that would include the phone, the video phone, the phone Netflix binging, and more than 4 hours of sitting in one day, and most of us sit more than 4 hours a day. The human body for eons on the planet has been set up to move and groove, not just stay with your head in one position and watch your phone or your computer or the TV or sit for prolonged periods of time. And these, what to the human race are abnormal changes of how we move within our lives, can ding sleep. Medical conditions like epilepsy and pain, that makes sense. You know, you turn and you feel pain and you wake up. These things can harm sleep. Now, sleep apnea makes you not have restorative sleep. And we're starting to see more sleep apnea even in kids as they either are obese or their head is in a certain position on the phone or over a video or the computer, because pushing your head forward starts to loosen a lot of the soft tissues in the back of your throat, which can create sleep apnea even in kids, or sitting too long. As we know, we put a lot of people through. I was just talking to a colleague as health professionals were having to sit all the time in medical schools and also on weekends at symposia. So we lose our health to try and help others gain theirs. But sleep apnea is an enemy of restorative sleep. Falling asleep with the TV or the phone on, or continuing your Netflix binging even as you go into Z land, that's been shown to hamper you from having a really great sleep. And even climate change is being linked to worsening sleep through disasters such as hurricanes, floods, and wildfires. So when you hear that huge list, it's really stunning. You kind of think to yourself, how does anybody anymore sleep? Well, that's what we're going to talk about, what the loss of sleep does to us and how we can get it back. I mean, really get it back and still have our modern contemporary life. So what happens in a nutshell when you do lose sleep? Insomnia, which is the inability to achieve restorative sleep, gives you a worse tomorrow. You have a greater likelihood of feeling exhausted, as well as a greater risk of being anxious and depressed. It affects mood for sure. And by the way, this is true vice versa. If you have mood issues or depression or worry or concern, those can worsen sleep. And if you have bad sleep, you can have more worry and concern. So it's a circle, a treadmill that you really don't want to be stuck on. There's something in ladies called perimenopausal insomnia, which is one of the most common complaints of midlife women. As hormones start to go south, so does our sleep. The perimenopause is when hormone levels start to yo-yo as eggs age, and regular ovulation, where you're going to, release an egg, becomes harder to achieve. And during this time, women typically require more sleep to actually feel better in your tomorrow. Up to 40% of perimenopausal women complain of serious sleep issues and fatigue. Life just feels harder, much more so than same-aged males. Though with today's pollution, this seems to be changing, and more males in earlier ages are also in my office, and I know in other clinicians' offices starting to complain about issues with sleep. Of note is that the age of perimenopause is lowering. And perimenopause is a milestone of reproduction. When you go into start menstruating, it's menarche. When you start to be between the period where you're no longer menstruating, that's perimenopause. When you no longer menstruate at all for a year, that's postmenopause. And men have their analog, which we call menopause or andropause. But because we have a planet that's filled with hormone-altering chemicals in today's dirty world, also with dirtier diets, we're seeing that perimenopause, which classically occurred in women at between the mid to late 40s, now is starting in some women in their mid to late 20s. And it's very hard to identify because no one expects women in their 20s to be going through perimenopause. So when they go and talk to their doc about sleeping issues or energy issues or belly flabby issues, they're really not taken seriously or certainly not looked at as being a hormonal issue. But as menstruation wanes, so does sleep. Now, without adequate sleep, we're kind of wired tired. We also can't think as clearly, and thinking is a very good thing to be able to do and to do it well. So we can't get any job done as well. We're more accident prone, and inadequate sleep promotes errors in judgment, even, and this is well established in the literature, more neuroticism and less mindful conscientiousness, no matter how much you sit and try and meditate and shut off your thoughts or down green drinks. You need sleep. Lack of restorative sleep stresses the body out. So it raises stress hormones. Two basic stress hormones, epinephrine and cortisol. And what do these guys do? They shrink an important little part of your brain called the hippocampus. And that's basically the seat inside your brain of your sense of self. I call it the 3 M's, meanness, memories, and motivation. It's where you kind of live. It's a physiologic analogy of your soul. Stress hormones shrink it. It's called hippocampal atrophy. So lack of sleep causes poor memory retrieval, overwhelm, and self-doubt, all the things that happen when your hippocampus starts to shrink. All of these things are caused by hippocampal dysfunction secondarily to lack of sufficient restorative sleep. So maybe you're seeing a psychotherapist when you really need to figure out how to get some real solid restorative sleep. Excessive levels of cortisol are linked to increased belly fat. I'm sure you've all seen those ads on TV wanting to sell you herbal pills to reduce your belly fat by reducing your stress hormones. Excess cortisol also hampers the healthy signaling of your sex hormones. And high levels of cortisol do this by competitive inhibition. So in other words, when you sleep at night and you don't get a good night's sleep, you elevate your levels of stress hormones, and these start to make your estrogen and testosterone, your sex steroid hormones, dysfunctional because cortisol can sit on every receptor. And even though you've got blood levels that look good by your doctor, whoever measures it, they can't get in because stress, the hormone molecules block them from getting in, even if your blood and saliva or urine hormones of levels look normal on testing. So you feel tired, bloated, fat, and slow, no matter how much your gynecologist or endocrinologist insist, oh God, your hormone levels look great. So I don't know, there's some other reason that you're not feeling good, or you're just not getting any younger. Never let anybody tell you you're not getting any younger, because you could be 80 or 90 and feel great if all your ducks are in a row. And one of those ducks includes restorative sleep. Now, excessive cortisol can increase an adrenal and brain hormone called dehydroepiandrosterone, or nicknamed DHEA. So excess stress boosts the production of an adrenal hormone called DHEA. And if you have more DHEA than you need because you've not been sleeping well and you got a lot of stress hormones flushing through your body, you can make estrogen or testosterone levels soar or work in an abnormal way. Thus, too little sleep makes too much stress hormone, which can either lower or amplify your sex steroid hormones, depending on your individual, many individual factors, individual physiologies. And too little sleep, making too much stress hormones for too long, can really depress your immune system. This puts you more at risk of everything: diverse diseases, infections, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, even eye diseases. Sleep has a lot to do with eye health. Did you know that the ophthalmologists that are now going to med school, learning everything about the eyes, have sleep centers as part of the med schools because a lot of eye damage takes place while you sleep if your sleep isn't healthy? Now, sleep is becoming known as a major influencer of eye health for your macula, for your optic nerve, for the health of your lens, for every part of your eye. So, any person with any kind of eye disease must have your sleep tested and improved to protect your most important sense, your vision. And not all eye doctors are up on this or say to you, have you had your sleep tested? Or will even order a sleep study for you, because not all eye doctors have gone to the right med schools that really emphasize to the students when they're in school that sleep is a big part of keeping your vision fabulous. The other thing that most of us don't really ponder, and certainly haven't pondered enough when our moods get really dysregulated, is that sleep is a huge contributor to psychology. Sleep is a portal to help you sort out the things you learned and endured all day long. And studies have linked a nightly battle with insomnia to all kinds of moods gone awry, which normally make you see a doc or get on meds when maybe you need to have your sleep improved. And this could include anxiety, depression, memory loss, dementia, even Alzheimer's and other brain disorders, including Parkinson's disease. So let's take a look at some of the not well appreciated causes of not getting a good night's sleep. And then we're going to give you a list of natural answers and kind of give you some of my clinical experience of which ones I think are good, better, fabulous, and not so good at all, and a big myth. So, the biggest thing that gets unappreciated is that we live in a society that loves our cup of joe. Excess caffeine can ding sleep, but in ways you might not have appreciated. Listen to this. Excess caffeine consumption, which means over 6 cups of coffee a day, 5 or 6 cups of coffee a day. But if you have multiple cups of espresso a day, you're getting easily 10. Excess caffeine consumption suppresses the production of the sleep hormone melatonin. So in the pineal gland where melatonin is made, there's pineal cells. Those are called pinealocytes. And when you drink a lot of caffeine, there is competitive inhibition of adenosine A2 receptors by the caffeine, and higher cumulative lifetime coffee consumption has actually been shown to shrink the size of the pineal gland that makes melatonin. This gland makes the sleep hormone melatonin. The size of pineal gland is referred to as VPP, volume of pineal parenchyma, or the pinealocyte cells. And when you regularly drink way too much coffee, the volume of your pineal gland actually shrinks. I'm shrinking. So too many cups of joe over too many years makes your pineal gland smaller. Then you just eke out a tiny bit of melatonin. A squattier pineal gland makes much less melatonin, and less sleep hormone means impaired quality of sleep, especially later in life, from the long-term effects of a well-caffeinated life. Now, of course, what constitutes caffeine in a smaller pineal gland probably depends on genetics and SNPs, because some people have the ability to detox caffeine really easily and other people don't. So this is somewhat based on our genetics and our body size, etc. But also, if your pineal gland shrinks and you make less melatonin, lack of restorative sleep is not the only issue. Melatonin fights cancer while you sleep. It's a nocturnal hormone and you fight cancer when you sleep. When I was a estrogen scholar at an estrogen think tank at Tulane, there was a physician, MD, PhD, who spent his whole life studying melatonin, and we would have brown bag lunches, and he came and chatted with us and would share melatonin is the way we fight cancer, and we do it as we sleep. Melatonin combines with good oils like fish oils and oils from seeds and oils from nuts and oils from olives, and it helps fight cancer as we sleep. So if you are battling cancer or a person with high risk of cancer, you don't want to overdo it with the caffeine because you could shrink your pineal gland and thus be exposed to less cancer protective melatonin. Now, you can always take melatonin as a replacement, but we're talking about the natural functioning of our own gland. That's pretty amazing. I was at a conference in Nashville last week, and Liz Lipsky is one of the other digestive gurus on the planet. And I was telling her, did you know that way too much coffee shrinks your pineal gland and you make less melatonin? And she went, oh my God, I never heard that before. You heard it here. Don't forget to go to drlindseyberkson.com and in a few months get the whole entire notes from this sleep show, because there's a lot of information in this show that I'm longing to share with you. Now, the other thing that America is doing is drinking too much. I have a lot of patients that come in that are in their 20s, and they commonly binge drink 7 to 10 drinks on the weekends and 3 or 4 during the week. They are binge drinkers because advertisements are making alcohol look trendy, cool. The coolest man in the world drinks alcohol, and it looks like it's as safe as water. I mean, when I literally say to people, do you understand that alcohol is a poison when you drink too much of it? They look with deer in the headlight, uh, that look right in front of me, and they can't believe that's true. How can that be? It's advertised all over the world. Everybody drinks. Well, each of us metabolizes alcohol differently due to various liver capabilities, body size, organ size. Some folks can drink a lot and still get their Z's. Women process alcohol much more slowly than men do. Women have smaller livers than men do. So some women will get insomnia from just one glass of wine. And if their husband's drinking 2 or 3 and they try to keep up with them, they might have a really terrible time sleeping because of the evening relaxing alcohol that they think is making them enjoy their life better. Alcohol, or at least too much of it, blocks REM sleep, the most restorative type of sleep. So you wake up feeling groggy. Alcohol also reduces antidiuretic hormones. So you may have to get up to urinate during the night, which also might be sleep disruptive in some people. So remember, women have smaller livers than men, and alcohol is very estrogenic. So if you drink more than your body can handle, it dings your sleep and it puts you at risk of hormonally driven cancers like breast cancer, uterine cancer, ovarian cancer. So it's really important for women not to drink too much, not just for sleep, but for many reasons. Exercise, we're looking at the basics: coffee, alcohol, exercise. If you exercise about 20 minutes a day, you often sleep better at night. There's no doubt about it. There's lots of studies that show it. If exercise was a drug, we'd all want to be on it and addicted to it. And not being in nature, not being outside, even just for 20 minutes a day. Nature enhances well-being and sleep. This is well documented in the peer-reviewed literature. In fact, they've discovered that if you even are inside, looking through the window at a beautiful outside or at pictures of nature outside, all of this promotes well-being and sleep. So if you have insomnia, put some beautiful pictures around or spend some time. I go to a gym that has a beautiful lake. And besides working out, I give myself times to do the great vitamin B and just be. So I'm not just rushing in there, rushing through my workout and rushing back to the rest of my day rushing. I really don't want to live my life that way. And so looking at the outside or being in the outside, these are also, it sounds so simplistic, but they are very sleep promoting. And most of us are in cubicles, indoors, in front of computers, and we have problems more and more with sleep. And of course, there's what we alluded to before, the hormone yo-yoing. This happens in both genders. Hormones out of balance can cause sleep out of balance, and um, women can have night sweats and have hormones go up and down, and that causes sleep issues in women. Or there can be too little testosterone in ratio to estrogen in men, especially men that start to gain more weight or drink more alcohol. Remember, alcohol is estrogenic. So the ratio of the male hormone, testosterone, to the female hormone, estrogen, in gents has a lot to do with their ability to sleep. And there's another hormone that's in on sleep, and that's growth hormone. Growth hormone is essential for restorative sleep and vice versa. The better you sleep, the better your levels of growth hormone. And it's interesting, exercise promotes better growth hormone. Eating healthy protein and digesting it well promotes better growth hormone. And growth hormone is needed for a great sleep. Your body becomes less efficient at falling and staying asleep if you have insufficient growth hormone. I love to run on my patients a big picture of their hormones. So I love to run their blood levels of hormones and their 24-hour urine levels of hormones. And the 24-hour urine level also gives you your growth hormone level, as well as your melatonin level, as well as a number of other things that you can't get in other hormone tests. And the FDA just came out in March with a study that showed the 24-hour levels, 24-hour urine tests of hormones are equal to blood levels, which are a very good way. There's a lot of controversy as to which is the only and best way to test hormones. And I think there are many ways to test hormones, but I like to look at the bigger picture because I also like to look at growth hormone levels. And there's also the effect of your blood pressure on sleep. Normal blood pressure falls a little bit as you sleep. That's called dipping, healthy dipping. And the more that you dip with your blood pressure a little bit while you sleep, the better you sleep. So your blood pressure should fall about 15 to 20% from your daytime blood pressure throughout the nighttime blood pressure. And this helps you achieve restorative sleep. If your blood pressure doesn't dip, and you can wear a 24-hour blood pressure monitor to figure this out, and you'd have to get that ordered most of the time by a cardiologist, you are then termed a non-dipper. And this is common in people who fall asleep with the TV on because your brain is still listening and can't quite totally let go, so your blood pressure stays a little higher. Or you're a Netflix binger and you put the phone on the bedstand and you're still listening and falling asleep to the episode that you were watching. Because you've still got that input into your brain, your blood pressure is not dipping down. Or it also can be because you have uncontrolled blood pressure issues, and it isn't just that you're falling asleep to the TV or the iPhone or any phone on your bedstand. So you don't want to be a non-dipper. So blood pressure levels while you sleep affect your sleep. And then we have to take a look, of course, at the psychological stuff, unresolved emotions of sadness, fear, regret, perfectionism, even guilt. You're just not right with your world. You've got hidden issues in your tissues. All these kind of things can disrupt sleep. Unfinished emotional business promotes unfinished sleep, and vice versa. So just remember, a lot of these things are a circle. Chronic insomnia makes you feel more insecure and anxious, and these feelings can then sabotage sleep. So emotions can get more chaotic often in middle life. We think life should get easier as we get older, but parents get older and need help. Your kids get into shockingly more trouble. Close family or friends start to get ill. Or you can't believe that at this time of your life, you thought you would have all your ducks in a row and you don't. And you're still having issues with your relationship, with your identity, with your job, with your money. Things just aren't stable. Who knew that growing up doesn't automatically make life or sleep better? So what the heck do we do? I've said all the things that threaten sleep, and I've told you all the issues that occur from it. Now you're sitting on your edge of your seat and go, just tell me what to do to get to sleep. But you see, you have to figure out where you fall. What is the reason, the core root issue of why you're not sleeping well? And it could be any of those things. But the other thing you should know is that sometimes not falling asleep is a flashing red light on the dashboard of your physiology telling you that you've got a hidden organic disease. So you need to get organic illness ruled out by a practitioner that knows your personal history. Just for example, if you have too much calcium in your blood from a little benign tumor or wart on a parathyroid gland, which is not your thyroid, but it's around your thyroid. So para means around. So parathyroid, around your thyroid, just a little teeny benign growth on you have 4 parathyroids on one of those parathyroids can elevate your calcium levels and can affect your brain and manifest as insomnia. And you could do everything that we're going to mention, take melatonin till the cows come home, eat greens and take magnesium till the cows come home. What is that meaning, till the cows come home? Or you could exercise and look out the window at nature, but if you have an underlying illness, you have to fix that. So once disease is ruled out, natural aids can be very helpful for midlife sleep issues. Some of these natural sleep aids bind to the same places in the brain as prescription sleep meds, which are termed sleep hypnotics. And some of them may lose their effectiveness over time. That's why it's really good to have a big tool bag of things that help you sleep, especially ones that work by mechanisms that don't lose their effectiveness. For example, hormones, balancing your hormones pretty much does not lose its effectiveness in most people. Nothing's 100% for everybody. And nutrients and lifestyle. So let's talk about some answers that you could look at. The first one is hormone hacking. Progesterone is a sleep hormone, not just melatonin. A healthy brain produces progesterone right inside the brain itself, and this is because progesterone is a brain protective hormone, and one of its protective actions is to help the brain go to sleep. Progesterone binds to the GABA, which are the calming receptors in the brain, to help turn the brain off to promote restorative sleep. So progesterone is a hormone that helps you sleep. Progesterone is also a member of the neurotrophin family, the brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which helps your brain stay healthy. And a healthier brain is easier to turn off at night. And it's also protected from neurodegeneration and cognitive decline. If you want to be sleeping well and you want to have your hormones in place to help you sleep well. As we age, in both men and women, we make a little less progesterone, and this contributes to poor sleep. And progesterone, taken it as replacement, usually helps this. In fact, progesterone is one of the biggest improvements for sleep. In fact, perimenopausal insomnia, which is the most common complaint, the first complaint, the second one is not losing weight easily, but the first complaint in perimenopause is sleep issues, is often the body screaming, I don't have enough progesterone, because that's made when you ovulate mostly, and you're not ovulating that much anymore. Oral progesterone is the better way to take progesterone to improve sleep most of the time than topical, because when you take progesterone orally, it has a flow through the liver. We call it the first hepatic pass. And that produces metabolites that are different from the progesterone that you swallowed. There's allopregnenolone and pregnenolone, and these have very similar molecular structures to Ambien, sleep hypnotics. So in the liver, the progesterone morphs into a sleep-promoting natural hormone without the adverse and potentially addictive or dangerous side effects. Now, some things about progesterone. It's absorbed very poorly when you take it orally. Just about 2% of what you take. If you take 200 milligrams orally, only about 2% of it is really absorbed. You increase the absorption of progesterone tremendously if you eat a little bit of food. Just a bite of food helps the progesterone be better absorbed. Isn't that crazy? Not a lot of docs tell you that, do they? Some people take topical progesterone and still see an improvement in sleep, but not everybody does. But progesterone, remember, is a brain protective hormone. It reduces brain on fire or excessive inflammation in the brain. And in this way, it fights off depression and possibly small vessel ischemic brain disease. Progesterone is considered by forward thinking neurologists to be a real protector of the brain and the entire spinal. The spinal cord, the cerebral spinal fluid. Men need progesterone too. It's sometimes prescribed for them, but in much lower dosages, and it's sometimes given in a facial cream. And Key Pharmacy and Federal Way has been making a male hormone face cream for many years, but Key Pharmacy, I just got a letter from them the other day saying they're no longer going to be selling to Texas. So the FDA really wants to constrict how much compounding pharmacies serve the public. And about 2 years ago, they made it illegal for them to ship to states that they didn't have a license in. And it's very expensive and difficult to maintain licenses in all of the states. And Texas makes it very difficult to even respond to the pharmacies that are applying for a license in that state. But just know that sometimes both men and women can benefit by progesterone replacement. So women might take anywhere from 50 milligrams orally to 200. Katharina Dalton, who was the English physician that first really took a look at progesterone and how it influences our sleep and behavior, would give it from 400 to 800 milligrams as a rectal suppository. She has over 55 papers published in peer-reviewed data, and we could spend an entire hour talking about that. But the span of how much you would give, the breadth of the dosage, depends a lot on the body size, how much the person has tried before. In a normal pregnancy, a woman makes about 400 milligrams of progesterone a day. So that, to me, is the upper higher end that the body is set up to physiologically handle. So you want to be careful, though, because progesterone, like any other hormone, all hormones are two-faced. They can be naughty or nice. So progesterone can go down two pathways, one that's protective against cancer and one that is promoting cancer. So the ideal way to take progesterone, the thought is today, is a little bit orally, whatever amount that your practitioner deems is optimal for you, and a little bit topically, and that helps promote progesterone's acting nicer than naughtier or more dangerous. The other thing you want to make sure is that you have less caffeine. We just talked a lot about that. Now, some people can drink espresso all day long and still sleep like a baby, but other people are really sensitive to caffeine. So if you find that you're sensitive to caffeine, try not to have it after 3 o'clock. That's usually the time you have your caffeine in the morning. It won't bother your sleep at night. But I've had a few people that they gave up their 1 cup of joe in the morning and then they could sleep at night. So the point that I want to make is the sensitivity spectrum to caffeine is really huge. And you have to figure out where you lie on this. Women metabolize caffeine much more slowly than men. And that's often why men can down a cup of coffee right before bed. And if a woman did this, she's lying there and staring at the ceiling the whole night. Now, melatonin is, we all know of it as the sleep hormone, but why would it do this? It's secreted by the pineal gland in response to cycles of darkness and light. So melatonin regulates your ability to stay in sync with Mother Earth, with cycles of light and dark on the planet. Thus, melatonin is a circadian rhythmicity hormone helping you stay in sync with how the planet rotates. So it's helpful for traveling across time zones to keep you in sync with the new light and dark cycles. Natural melatonin secretion is dysregulated. We've mentioned this a little bit before. If you work at night, if you're in depression, if you're a shift worker, if you have seasonal affective disorder, and if you take way too much caffeine. It's a major antioxidant, and it keeps estrogen being a less cancer-promoting hormone and a more protective hormone, because promotes the estrogen signals to ER beta, which protect against cancer, and tamps down ER alpha, which promotes growth. The usual dose of melatonin, you start really, really tiny, like a 0.25 milligrams or a half of a milligram to 3 milligrams about a half hour before bedtime. Some people do better with chewing it and letting it melt under their tongue. I know there's time release melatonins, but you can just buy a regular non time release melatonin and chew it and let it just slowly dissolve under your tongue. I found is one of the best ways to take it. But melatonin, remember, is also cancer fighting. So sometimes if someone is in the early stages of fighting cancer, especially hormonally driven cancer like breast cancer, prostate cancer, or even any kind of other cancers that have an estrogen component, positive component to them, we might give up to 20 milligrams of progesterone to act as a cancer fighting hormone while you sleep. It's so powerful in how it fights cancer that melatonin has been described in the peer review literature as an aromatase inhibitor. And not a lot, but some companies have tried to combine melatonin with aromatase inhibitors and make a commercial product because it fights cancer like an aromatase inhibitor, but actually through 1, 2, 3, 4 other mechanisms. So you get double whammies. So if you're on an aromatase inhibitor, it can be added to it. And it can also be added to people taking an aromatase inhibitor, which will reduce the adverse complications that are normally seen, such as liver stress, by taking the aromatase inhibitor. So melatonin is a cancer survivor, cancer fighter's best friend. It can be used with medications that tamp down estrogen. It makes those medications work better. It adds more underlying protective mechanisms to what those medications do. And companies have tried to profit by that to make those. And so I asked a functional oncologist one day why he wasn't recommending melatonin to a cancer patient that we shared. And he said, I don't want to pay for the swimming pool of my lawyer. And I had another cancer patient whose cancer doctor said, boy, I'd love to recommend melatonin, 2-methoxyestradiol, vitamin D, all these other things, but I can't do it or I'm not going to get my retirement from the cancer group. But when I do retire 10 years down the road, I'm going to open up my own functional cancer center and then I'll be able to recommend all these things. That's our system today. Doc can't tell you what they know might be helpful for you, or they're going to be booted out of their team. And you, the patient, miss out. You really want to make sure that you get magnesium-rich foods and supplementation. Remember, magnesium is nature's Valium. So magnesium is something to consider to take as a supplement before bed, but remember to eat lots of more greens throughout the day, which contain a lot of magnesium. In fact, plants are green because of chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is activated by the sun. The center of the chlorophyll molecule is magnesium. So in essence, magnesium is really captured sunlight. Sufficient magnesium inside your red blood cell levels where magnesium does most of its magic. So a regular serum blood level of magnesium is kind of not a great test because you got to be so very off for it to show up anything. So I like to run what's called an RBC or red blood cell level of magnesium. Sufficient magnesium inside your cell makes you feel like you've been out in the sun, lying down on a blankie, just relaxing. So magnesium has captured sunlight, but it's the one glitch in the human body. It's not easy to maintain magnesium inside that darn old red blood cell. It's easy to have it rinsed out. In fact, there's lots of articles in the literature that show when we're really stressed, we just can't hold on. It's like we're leaking magnesium. I'm leaking. Very hard to hold magnesium inside the red blood cell levels. And in this day and age, who's not stressed? So magnesium is a tough mineral to get in a good enough dose. If you take more magnesium than you need, you're going to have a little diarrhea. In the olden days, docs would give magnesium to what they called bowel tolerance, where you took enough to the fact where you got diarrhea, then you back off a little bit, and that's what you need to keep your red blood cells fluffed up with magnesium with that sense of sunlight connection. But the other confusing thing with magnesium is that many magnesium supplements don't contain the elemental levels that the label said will be in there. So, for example, one company was saying it had 183 milligrams of magnesium glycinate, which makes it sound like you're almost getting 200 milligrams magnesium. But most of that was glycinate, the carrier salt. How much is really just the magnesium elemental molecule? When I called up the company, it was a doctor's brand. Took a few hours of finding out exactly what was in there. There was only 18 milligrams of magnesium. And in most of the literature, if you're trying to achieve something, in this case, trying to achieve better sleep, you want to have about 250 milligrams to 300 milligrams, sometimes up to 400 of magnesium once or twice or 3 times a day, depending on how much you rinse magnesium out of your red blood cells. If you take more than you need, you'll just get looser stools and you can back off from that. Some people just have really a terrible time holding on to magnesium and actually need a lot more magnesium throughout the day than one would think. Now, there's some tricks to keep magnesium held inside that red blood cell where it does its sleep magic. Sometimes taking taurine, Taurin, an amino acid, helps magnesium stay more anchored inside that red blood cell and less risk of being rinsed out. So you could kind of refer to taurine as a magnesium sparing amino acid. That's kind of my term for it. There's a really cool homeopathic product that's some of my patients find is the thing for them. It's called Moon Drops. This is a pleasant vanilla flavored homeopathic that really works for a lot of people. It's in this cool little box. Whoever did their art put it in this really cool little box. You'd love to just open this little box. It's real delicious. And if your progesterone replacement and reducing your caffeine and adding your exercise isn't doing it for you, you can try letting 2 moon drops dissolve slowly in your mouth a half hour before you go to bed. There's a few other tricks because you never know what's going to work for you. 5-HTP, which is 5-hydroxytryptophan, increases serotonin, which is then converted to melatonin. So you're giving the precursor to melatonin. 5-HTP is a melatonin booster. And you can start at 100 milligrams 3 times a day and then slowly double that. Now, some cases of irritable bowel syndrome are worsened by serotonin. So if you have irritable bowel syndrome, 5-HTP might not be a good answer for you. If you're too stressed and your cortisol level, especially seen on a 24-hour saliva test or on a 24-hour urine test, if you make too many stress hormones, there are herbs to calm down, lower the levels of your stress hormones, because your stress hormones are supposed to elevate during the day to keep you up and lower at night to let you sleep. If they're too high at night, they bang against your cranium and you can't sleep. Magnolia bark is an herb that lowers stress hormones, especially cortisol and adrenaline. This is really great if you had a 24-hour saliva test that showed that your cortisol levels are too high at night. So magnolia bark reduces the time it takes you to fall asleep and increases the amount of time you spend in both REM sleep and non-REM sleep. So you might want to first try melatonin. If that doesn't work, do melatonin magnesium. If that doesn't work, do melatonin, magnesium, and magnolia bark. You can add and subtract now that you have a few of these other ideas. Magnolia bark acts like an herbal magnesium. It calms you down, reduces anxiety. For some people, magnolia bark can be as effective as Valium without the risk of dependency or adverse side effects. And the typical dosage is 250 to 500 milligrams taken with dinner and before bed, but sometimes severe insomniacs need a much larger dose for about a month or two, and then you can lower it down. Now, some people swear that L-theanine makes them feel a lot better. I have not seen a lot of help with this, but it's an amino acid that increases the level of 3 neurotransmitters, GABA, serotonin, and dopamine, which are all calming, that live inside the brain and regulate emotions. L-theanine promotes healthier daytime emotions and more nighttime sleep, especially calming mood swings of menopause, perimenopause, andropause. And if you're a caffeine junkie, L-theanine, at least in the literature, is said to help counteract the anti-sleep effects of caffeine. So let's say you're out with friends and you had a lovely dinner and you want to have that great black cup of coffee after dinner and you're worried that that's going to keep you up. You might take some L-theanine a little bit when you go to bed to see if it's going to help you stay asleep. Now, there's a bunch of herbs. Valerian root comes in capsule form. My patients say that the liquid form makes it work a little bit better. There is a traditional Chinese medicine called Xiao Zhao Yen. And the formal name sounds like what comes out during lovemaking is semen Zephia spinosae, and it's the dried ripe seed of the spiny date. I think I've been on some spiny dates. And it's been used for hundreds of years in China to help reduce severe issues with sleep and also horrific dreams. In fact, a lot of our patients with autoimmune disease or cancer are put on a medication that's a super immune booster called low-dose naltrexone. But one of the side effects are they can have these absolutely panoramic dreams that sometimes give them insomnia. So this Chinese herb, semen ziziphie spinosae, remember this is going to be in my blog and in the Townsend letter so you can see all this in detail, that helps offset the bad dreams, excessive dreaming, if you have that just organically or if it's a side effect of taking low-dose naltrexone. There's a bunch of other herbs. There's an herb that's called lettuce seed that's been shown in a human pregnancy study to promote better sleep in insomniacs and found to be safe during pregnancy. So you make a lot of progesterone during pregnancy, so some women don't have any problem sleeping, but some women do, and lettuce seed happens to be an herb that's been shown in human studies to be safe. The dose is 1,000 milligram capsule of lettuce seed a half hour before bed. Now, why wouldn't you just take a darn sleeping pill? Well, sleep hypnotics, regular use of sleeping pills, prescription sleep hypnotics, that's the official name of them, are linked to making you die prematurely from diverse causes. Even taking less than 18 sleep hypnotics, 18, just 18 nights in a single year, is significantly statistically linked to dying prematurely from what they call all-cause mortality, from any cause that can make you die earlier. And the authors of that study pointed out that that study was the 19th scientific investigation linking sleep hypnotics to dying prematurely. So the sleeping pill fix isn't worth it. And if you're having a horrific time, you might need to be on a sleeping pill while you're doing all the other things that we're talking about. And we'll be talking about developing better sleep hygiene, but then go off it as quickly as you can because it's not a safe thing to be on. And these meds are really habit forming and they do lose their effectiveness over time. Now, some doctors say because sleep hypnotics are habit forming, why don't you just take antihistamines? Because they can cause you to be drowsy and they're certainly not as dangerous, they say. It's not true. I was talking to a neurologist friend of mine in San Antonio, and he was telling me that all the neurologists tell everybody, all their patients, to stay off antihistamine meds because they block acetylcholine, which lubes neurotransmitters and is critical for memory. And there are studies that show for so many years that you take antihistamines, it ups your risk of cognitive decline. They're significantly linked to cognitive decline, Alzheimer's disease, Lewy body disease, any just kind of cognitive decline. The antihistamines that you use for your allergies, it'd be better to find out why you have the allergies, the root cause, and get rid of them. Because while you're taking the allergy pills, you're dinging your brain and dinging your sleep. So you're trying to get to sleep, but you're dinging your brain is what I meant to say. And sleep medications can cause other issues, more car accidents, addiction because they're hard to get off of, which is called rebound worsened insomnia. And they're also linked to the most odd late night behaviors or food binges. that you can't even remember when you wake up. I had a patient, a young man, was in his 20s, been on sleep meds for years. And he told me he would wake up in the morning and there would be empty tuna cans lining his kitchen floor, and he could taste tuna fish in his mouth. And he would be opening and binging on tuna fish at night because this was the behavior induced by the sleep hypnotics. And I just, you know how much I love comedy. If you can't make it fun, don't do it. So you just got to laugh. I love, 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 love this scene in Grace and Frankie, where Jane Fonda gathers up her courage and energy to break up with her beau when he comes down at night to raid the fridge. She breaks up with him, but he comes down the next morning, kisses her on the cheek like it never happened. Lily Tomlin asks, "Did you break up in English? Was he even in the room?" But the truth comes out. It was an Ambien breakup. Now Jane Fonda has to break up with him all over again when the Ambien is out of his bloodstream and he's vertical and conscious. And how much should we sleep? We're told that 8 hours sleep is the golden holy grail of sleep. But there was a book that's out of print right now, and these two anthropologists went around the world studying sleep in cultures around the world. And they found that there were some indigenous cultures that would sleep for 4 hours, wake up in the middle of the night, have a huge feast, lights on, chickens roaming around, and go back to sleep for another 4 hours. And they didn't seem to be any the worse for it. They found there's some cultures that slept in rooms that were totally bright, with 15 people piled on top of each other, animals all over the place. And they didn't seem any the worse for it. So in today's culture, in our society today, our science, our doctors, our scientists are saying we need to sleep in a darkened room. We need to must have 8 hours sleep a night, but that might not really be the holy grail for everybody. You really have to kind of go inside yourself and see how you feel. Did you get a restorative night's sleep? You could feel it. My mother, who lived to be in her mid 90s, past her mid 90s, and was totally healthy and an athlete, never ill most of her life, only slept 4 hours a night. And that's what felt good to her. Einstein basically slept 4 hours a night, and then he did these mini naps. He could just close his eyes and do 10-minute mini naps. I can't do that at all. You might as well shoot me. So we're telling you what's known at this time and what science says at this time. But remember, at one time, people said leeches were the best way to go. And another time, people said the earth was flat. So we're telling you the best that we know of this time, but all information, all information should be looked at based on you. How do you feel? Not how someone else is telling you how you should feel. So you want to eat less junk food, drink less alcohol, limit caffeine, or maybe do one thing at a time and see how that feels to you. You want to limit IT exposure. I think this might be a dictum that does carry weight for a lot of us before bed and sleep. A lot of people are sleeping with their iPhones under the covers of their nightstands. They say that 61% of people in some surveys are sleeping with the TV on, which again is going to make you a non-dipper. The blue light that comes off screens mimics the light of full daylight, and this can promote sleep as well as promote insulin resistance and keep you fat. There's a lot to be said about keeping your IT out of your bedroom, and then some people have it in the bedroom and don't feel any adverse effects. Remember, how does this work for you? That means you got to be in touch with you. That means you got to have a relationship with you. That means you have to tune into yourself and figure out how to tune into yourself and know what that feels like, what feels good and what feels bad, and kind of talk to your kids about this so they can figure out what feels right or not right for them and make that an intention in the family. You want to get regular exercise. You want to go outside. You want to have a good sleep promoting mattress. Apparently, memory foam mattresses that are new can outgas dangerous solvents that aren't good for the brain, and an unhealthy brain is a brain that's harder to put to sleep. When will the bad news stop? I hate being a bearer of bad news. You want to sleep in dark room as possible. A lot of people sleep better in a dark room, but remember the indigenous societies that slept great with the lights on and the chickens walking all over the place. So keep in mind this might not be the truth for you. You want to consider having a more orderly home, because the more orderly spaces in your bedroom and home reduces cortisol levels, which then soothes your spirit and makes restorative sleep more possible. You want to resolve your emotions as best as you can, because unhealthy emotions makes for unhealthy sleep and vice versa. So it's always a good idea for any issue that comes up to take a look at emotional house cleaning. So any issue that really comes up that's nagging you, a wise person says, what in my life am I not looking at? For anything. And insomnia is a significant something. Is there anything in your life that you're not looking at that may be dealing with that instead of all this might be good for you? And did you know that your teeth have something to do with sleep? Everything's connected. I know this is making you crazy. Sleep is harmed by bruxism, teeth grinding, and the combination of insomnia and teeth grinding is now considered a primary sleep related movement disorder. So sometimes you can use a mouth guard. Sometimes you can identify reactive or intolerant foods. Food is that powerful, it can cause bruxism. Getting up to pee. So if you have too many liquids at night, if you have to pee too much at night, some people can't go back. But if you have to get up to pee a lot, that also suggests that your cortisol levels are too high. Cortisol dysregulation, because if your cortisol is lower, which is healthier at night, even though your bladder gets full, it doesn't wake you up. So people who are very stressed out, very stressed, or in times of severe stress, they might need to get up 6, 7, 8 times at night. That's definitely a time of severe adrenal dysregulation. You might consider having regular wind down routines that signal to your mind and your body that it's time to wind down and sleep. I sleep better when my sheets are brand newly cleaned. And if I was wealthy as could be, I would have clean sheets every night and a driver. I would have a driver. Let's see, mindfulness. I often suggest mindfulness exercises to my patients. I'm seeing more and more patients, especially women, who are so chaotic during the day, so chaotic. They've abandoned congruency with their bodies. They're rushing to fit in their exercise, rushing to pick their kids and deliver them and pick them up. They're rushing to the store. They're rushing to the job. They're rushing to their health coach. They're rushing to their essential oil coach. They're rushing all over the place, and they can't calm down. They're rushing to fit in their yoga and meditation, as oxymoronic as that sounds. So I often recommend some very focused, mindful exercises. I lived with Swami Satchidananda at Yogaville East in the 70s, and there's some exercises that are very helpful to learn how to become more mindful. And acupuncture is a physical way to achieve more physiologic and emotional balance and mindfulness in your meridian-laden body. What we just said before you might want to consider is your sleep issue trying to tell you something. Any persistent problem, such as a sleep problem, may be a flashing red light. So you might want to put some intention and prayer right before you go to sleep. I like to do this when I've got a problem, be it a health issue, a job issue, a work issue that's with another person. Before I go to sleep, I might fall asleep going, if it's for my higher good, what's the meaning of blah, blah, blah? And if it's for my higher good, what? And I repeat it over and over while I just fall asleep. And often during my sleep, a surprising answer will show up to help me understand what's going on. So I'm not just counting sheep while I sleep. I'm sorting out what I've gone through during the day. And if I put intention on what needs to be sorted out, often I get the answer. Now, if all else fails, you have tried melatonin, you've tried magnesium, you exercise, you're meditating, you're taking magnesium, you're in bathtubs of Epsom salts, literally bathtubs of magnesium, and you just can't sleep. You're on progesterone. You've balanced your hormones. You've been a good little boy or girl, and you still can't sleep. Well, I got something in that tool bag. If all else fails, you might consider for a period of time an off-label use of a drug that helps retrain the brain to go into restorative sleep. I had a number of patients that had tried everything and couldn't sleep. So I did my geeky thing and I sleuthed the peer review literature, and I found an article on gabapentin that shows that it retrains the brain for sleep. So I started to utilize this the amounts are 100 milligram capsules. A big bottle of them, because it's off patent, are about $5 for about 100 of them. You start with 100 the first night, you double it to 200 the next night, you triple it to 300 the third night, and you try and assess which night it was better at. You take it a half hour before you go to bed. The people it works on, usually the night you get to the right dosage for you, you just sleep through the night. And you wake up feeling calm and wonderful, like you've had a great restorative sleep. Now, I've had a few people that it didn't work on. They couldn't worsen their insomnia. One woman said it made her feel shaky, but about 80% of people that go on this can just start sleeping the next day. The next night. It's not 100% foolproof because nothing is. But remember, integrative medicine is a combination of both sides of healing. And you're on this it's a medicine. It's often used for nerve root pain for 6 to 9 months. And then when you start to respond to things that you didn't get a response from before, after it's on for 6 to 9 months, your brain has started to learn how to sleep. So taking a little melatonin and magnesium a half hour before bed, suddenly that's enough, and you can taper down off the medication while you add in a little bit more magnesium and a little bit more melatonin, and you often can get off of the gabapentin completely. Now, don't use this medication if you have kidney disease without working with a physician in the know. Don't use it if you're pregnant, because it's not been okayed for working in pregnancy. But in the sleep centers in Austin, Texas, presently, they are now recommending gabapentin to their insomniacs because it does retrain the brain to sleep. There are about 5 to 10% of people that gain weight on gabapentin, and there's about 5 to 10% of people who lose weight on gabapentin, and the majority of people don't have any weight change from gabapentin at all. One woman gained about 10 pounds, but it retrained her brain that she couldn't sleep for 10 years, and then it took her a few months to lose that weight, and she said it was well worth it. So this is a lot. Sleep is such an issue. I wanted to give you a lot of information so that you would look at the bigger picture, have some answers. If all else fails, have an ultimatum answer so that the therapeutic sleep force might be with you. If you love podcasts like this, please go to iTunes and give me a review. If you think you might want to have a consult with me because you want to work with me on your sleep or any other issue, hormonal issue, breast cancer, inflammatory bowel disease, you can contact me via my consult section at drlindseyberkson.com. And remember, all of this information needs to be individualized for you. But knowledge is power, and this gives you a lot more understanding about how you might help this issue and then put it to sleep. Bye.